My name's Adam Hanlon, and I'm the editor of Wetpixel. I'd like to welcome you to Wetpixel Live. I'd also like to introduce you to our resident expert, Alex Mustard. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Adam. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And in 2017, the United Nations has declared that the decade from 2021 to 2030 will be the decade of ocean science for sustainable development. As a part of that, our friend and fellow photographer Ellen Coilart has reached out to a group of photographers globally to be ocean champions, basically to be ambassadors for the oceans through our imagery and through our actions. And what we've each signed is a charter, a commitment in the way that we will behave with the oceans. And so what we thought is Alex and I might run through this charter together, because it's a great document that really highlights some of the key things that all image makers can do in order to improve to display and improve the plight of the oceans, but also to try and make a practical difference as well. So I'm going to start at the top. The first one was certainly a point that I was involved a little bit with Ellen in formulating some of these points. And this is one that certainly I think I was able to help her with. And point one is I'll use my skills and abilities as an image maker to attempt to faithfully reproduce the beauty, splendor and majesty of the underwater world. And by doing so, to encourage others to become more engaged in protecting it. And in essence, I see that's our role as underwater photographers. We need to create a desire from the public that these are special places and they need to look after them. I think if people aren't aware of what's there, they don't see a need to protect it, they don't need a need to conserve it. And as underwater photographers, we're uniquely placed to be able to show them these amazing sights that they may never see. So,
I completely agree. And I think it's both that going out and creating the images, but then also being aware of your responsibility to share those images and how valuable sharing pictures can be. People often say, why do you share pictures on social media? Well, this is a real reason. You can really engage people in the underwater world. Shall I read out number 2?
Yes, please.
I will use my skills and my voice in documenting the challenges the ocean face to raise awareness and as a call to action. And I think this is kind of covering the same area, but making the point of the value of that raising awareness and calling to action over the variety of different problems. The first one was maybe about celebrating the wonder of wild oceans. This is saying the oceans have problems right across them, and it's important we raise awareness to this. Absolutely. And really try and get people on board to getting involved in finding solutions.
And I think also documenting some of those problems. It's not all about the pretty stuff. It's also about the stuff that shows the threats that are out there. The third one is one that hopefully all underwater photographers should subscribe to, and that's I will not stress or endanger subjects, fauna and flora for the sake of an image. If the position of the subject is not contributing to a good image, I'll either just document or observe. I will not manipulate or move subjects to an unnatural environment. Not by touching and not by provocation. So fairly straightforward. I think as photographers, most people would subscribe to that opinion. If an image, no image is worth the potential damage that you cause by moving or trying to recreate a scene by physical manipulation. I think that's a reasonable way of putting it.
But absolutely critical to have this one in there because it's the few bad apples that are in the underwater photographer's basket. This is probably the area most of all that they're both causing damage to the environment and frustrating the rest of our community by breaking this. And what I think Ellen has hoped with this is this should actually become very widespread and signed up to by underwater photographers. So I'll read number 4. I will work locally if applicable and contribute time to document and tell stories in support of local conservation initiatives. Well, I don't want to be too frivolous, but we've had plenty of opportunities to work locally. But actually, but actually, I think this is really important. And certainly as a UK-based photographer, I lend my images to a great number of causes, right across the country, from really major major issues, major national issues to local issues. Whether that's we've been involved in a kelp conservation project down in Sussex on the south coast of England, where inshore trawling has done a lot of damage to the native habitat, and about restoring that, right the way up to national initiatives. We've had a big national initiative in the UK about increasing the amount of highly protected marine protected areas. Yeah. And both of those are causes that I really work hard to support with my photography. And images are so valuable to any conservation effort because they just go out and grab people's attention.
Yeah. Particularly striking images, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where your photography skills really pay off. The more eye-catching your image, the more people are going to engage with that conservation message.
Yep.
So it's really one of the best ways to use your pictures.
Yeah. Number 5 is I'll consider the impact my image has once it's distributed without the right context and withhold images that can spark sensationalism and wrong practices. And this is very much an issue with some types of image. We need to be aware of what their impact is. So when we choose,
I think shark images are a great.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yeah, the classic mouth open shark, mouth open image of a shark on the bait, probably doesn't really do sharks a great deal of favour. Whereas the shark swimming placidly by over the sand in somewhere like Togo Beach does a lot more to dispel those kinds of myths of sharks being mindless killers or whatever the current public kind of perception is. Yeah,
and I've put shark images out with agents where I've made it very clear in the contract of the images that the newspapers are signing up to that they have to use my captions.
Yeah, I've done so.
I've also told my agents they're not allowed to sell them to certain outlets who I know will constantly push those things.
Yeah.
And I don't need to mention the Daily Mail by name for to know the sort of that might be. Right, and move on before anyone. Number 6, I will research my subjects before attempting taking images or footage of them, hence being aware of their natural behaviour in the water and my reaction to them. I will create awareness needed to keep subjects and myself safe in the water. I realise that by not understanding my subject, I could unwillingly provoke a potentially dangerous situation in the water. Most of the times that will create a media backlash and a disadvantage for the subject. I think this is a really, really great point, and I think it's applicable not just with dangerous animals, but actually I think there are a number of photographers out there, underwater photographers, who do treat their subjects as subjects and not as wild animals when they're working with nature subjects.
Yeah.
And often, even unaware of what they're shooting, they just go, I want to just shoot this because it looks pretty, it will do well for me.
Yeah.
And actually taking time to understand your subjects is, I think, the first step in showing proper courtesy and respect to what you're shooting. And I think your photography will actually improve by following this as well, actually.
I think there's no surprise that a lot of very successful photographers have really strong marine science backgrounds. And that's because they have this sort of baked in, really. Yeah. Number 7 is I'll practice what I preach. For example, in the fight against single-use plastic, I will use my reusable water bottle. There we are. Hot drinks containers and so on. When attending events, I will share my concerns and ideas and will try to inspire not by pointing fingers, but by giving the right example. I will not accuse nor name and shame, but graciously lead by example to inspire others to do the same. And obviously, there's lots of examples of this. In general, if you poke someone hard enough, you'll get a negative reaction. Whereas if you lead by example, hopefully you get people to emulate you. I know Ellen is very involved with the organizer of AIDEX, and I think the past 2 years now, I may have that wrong, AIDEX has had no single-use plastic involved in the whole show, and I think they're a really good example. There are other shows in the diving industry where that's certainly not the case. So it is changing, but
it's not just plastic as well. It goes across the whole. It's about particularly. I think one thing that might come out of the COVID situation is that there'll be less pressure for speakers to necessarily attend events, and we'll be able to attend a lot more events remotely. Yeah. Jumping on planes the whole time to fly around the world to tell people about the issues of global warming has never made a lot of sense to me.
No.
Obviously, there can be a need to travel to create images that are going to influence behavior and get people engaged with issues.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that a speaker there live has a better engagement with the audience. But asking yourself the question about do you need to be going to an event is also, I think, a really important part of this. Could you present remotely? in a way, and actually make a positive point about the fact that you've chosen not to fly for, that environmental reason.
And investing in the technology and in order to do so, I think is a good thing. Yeah.
It's my turn to read, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Number 7, I will practice what I preach.
No, that's already done. Yeah.
Sorry, number 8. I like it so much I wanted to say it again. But I completely agree with that. And I've seen some pretty examples of people saying, "Oh yes, you should all do this. You should all do this." Well, then themselves not doing it.
Yep.
I will inform myself and people around me about sustainable food and the better consumption choices, but we'll do that in a respectful and polite way. Well, I'll try and be polite on this one. But I'm not even, particularly when it comes to ocean exploitation, so much of the ocean is massively overexploited. Ecosystems have been completely degraded. And for me, sustainability is not enough. If you accept, as almost everyone does, that the ocean is already degraded, saying a fishery is sustainable is just saying, well, we're going to keep it in that degraded state.
Yeah.
We need to do better than sustainable.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, if you are going to make those choices, sustainable is a good way to go. I also think you need to educate people better on bycatch. I know there's a mahi-mahi fishery in the Pacific. That's a line-caught fishery, and it's 100% sustainable in terms of the fishery. And people buy that and say, this is a really good thing to be buying because this fishery, it's completely sustainable. It's got the highest accreditation for sustainability. But the bycatch in that fishery is more than one turtle gets hooked for every mahi-mahi.
Yeah.
And seabirds are hooked and sharks are hooked as well, but more than one turtle. Yet it still gets the highest environmental status because in terms of the stock of mahi-mahi, it's sustainable.
It's okay for the mahi-mahi, but not for anything else.
Education about food, because a lot of consumers want to make the right decisions, but then the information is not put in front of them. And I think that's something that we can really help with. I realize I've taken that off topic a bit.
That's all right. So, which brings us kind of neatly onto the next one, which I'll create a rational dialogue with those that want to learn, talk at schools, and inspire the next generations. And I think one of the things that you mentioned previously, Alex, the fact that we can now do this remotely actually potentially widens the net. Being able to reach out to almost any part of the world that has an internet connection and present information, share images, share your thoughts about the marine environment and its plight is a really powerful tool, and something that I think that we should all try and do. If we have the opportunity to do that kind of thing, we really should. Yeah.
I think the best, I've done quite a lot of school talks. I think the best question I've had after one of them is one of the little boys put his hand up and goes, "Excuse me, have you ever had your head bitten off by a shark?"
Well, it happens last week. Yeah, no, yeah. Okay, good point.
Okay, number 10. I will comment to negotiate a fair price when my images are used for commercial purposes. I will commit to negotiate a fair price when my images are used for commercial purposes. This will allow me and future image makers to create images with an impact to show the world and to tell stories. And I think this is an important thing to sign up for, because if we undervalue the powerful ocean imagery, ultimately there will be no finance to create more of it.
Yeah.
Certainly the very best work. And also, and as a result, the quality of ocean imagery would be degraded. And as we were saying earlier, the visual power of individual shots to reach out and grab people's attention, the better the shots, the more attention they grab. Yeah. So we actually want underwater photography to get better and better, because it will engage much better with the public. And if we devalue it, then ultimately its quality will sink. And as its quality sinks, so it will engage less.
I mean, this boils back to the sustainability argument, doesn't it? Or the sustainability discussion. It's sustainability in terms of resources, but also in order for the industry to be sustainable, we have to be able to create income from it. And if we're in a situation where the imagery is basically becomes worthless, then there's no way of doing that, and then there's no point investing in it, and we all have to find another way of earning a living. And that in itself will result, and I don't mean this specifically to us, but in terms of photographers and as in general, that will result in the oceans being less represented by wonderful imagery. So, yeah. So number 11 is I'll contribute with images or video films to UNESCO's Ocean Decades communication activities, which is kind of self-explanatory. We've done that, and where I'm going to cheat and go on to the next one. Where I can, I'll participate in Ocean Decade events and communicate about it on social media as an Ocean Decade champion. Now, obviously, the COVID-19 outbreak has affected this. Technically, the decade only starts next year, so hopefully things will be reverting. But I know there's a series of programs and events that have been scheduled, some of which were scheduled this year, which have now either become virtual events or have been postponed till next year. So I guess keep an eye out. You'll be hearing more about these events as they come along over the next 10 years, really, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
Go on then, Alex, on the 13.
Okay, I'll read the last two as well.
Yeah,
I will be an Ocean Decade champion in everything I do, and understand that actions speak louder than words. I think that is actually really important.
Yeah.
And it's not always about being preachy or about being moany like I've been in this. It's actually about behaving in the right way so people can see you as a positive role model rather than always being out there criticizing others for the things they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
I think that is really important for inspiring people.
Yeah.
And then I will commit to dialogue and looking for constructive solutions when challenged, and understand the power of compromise and diplomacy in order to obtain a common goal in conservation. And I think that's advice that you could use throughout life, but particularly in terms of conservation is, things have to be practical to work. And compromises need to be sought to actually get everyone signed up for them.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really exciting time in conservation at the moment, in that people are now moving on to really wanting to properly protect the oceans. I think the last decade was maybe a little bit more about setting out a lot of marine parks, about getting people used to the idea of this, getting the public on board with wanting more of the ocean protected,
creating a desire.
Now, these parks are in place and you've got everyone signed up to them, is actually getting those parks properly protected now, because sadly, a lot of parks are paper parks more than real ones. And when the ocean is properly protected, it makes a huge difference, and there's an incredible resilience in the ocean to bounce back. But the compromise is absolutely essential, in that you can't just make these sweeping changes and expect people to sign up to them. It does need to be this slowly catchy monkey approach of slowly, getting these things, getting proper, all the stakeholders involved in these decisions on board with the changes. And, actually one of the big beneficiaries of the oceans being properly protected are people like fishermen.
Yeah.
Because if you have large areas of the oceans properly protected and habitats restored to their full function, the productivity of the ocean will go through the roof. And actually, for a fraction of the effort and money, fishermen will be able to catch far more of the food for far less effort. Yep. And actually their work become much more profitable anyway.
Yep. So I think it's a really good sort of checklist of points for all, arguably not just underwater photographers, but we're talking to an underwater photography audience here to subscribe to. So I'm sure Alex would join me in saying that we hope that everyone would adopt a similar set of principles when they're capturing pictures underwater. I think it's a really important thing.
Yeah, and I think it's encouraged to be something that everyone can sign up for. It's not
absolutely
limited.
Yeah. It's personal commitment. It doesn't matter, it doesn't, you don't have to share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But it's a nice thing to share because it spreads the word about it.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Alex. We'll see you in future episodes. I would like to thank our sponsor for this, which fitting enough is Epic Diving, who are two of the most shark-aware people that I know on the planet. Please feel free to subscribe to this channel for future episodes, to like this video if you enjoyed it, and to add suggestions for future topics, and obviously those could be environmental topics as well as photography topics, in the comment section. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you soon.